Welcome to the Land Cave, where we're living as nerds. I'm Patrick, joined by Kevin.
Kevin, I finished the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I liked
He
it.
did. I made him do it.
Yeah, you pretty much did, because
Yeah.
there was a part in the middle where I was like, but I'm very glad I finished it.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Kevin has not... I don't know how much you played of Final Fantasy VII, but you did not beat Final Fantasy VII, correct?
So, what I saw, like, I think that maybe I just did the first bombing run, because and like maybe I was there when somebody played part of the cross-dressing part,
Uh-huh.
but definitely not anything past Midgar.
Okay. So, perception, at least we wanted to discuss the storyline as someone who is not familiar with the original, with someone who is familiar with the original, and
Very familiar.
understand how these things sync up. So I've beaten the game twice. Owen's beaten it more times than I have, but either way, there's stuff in the game that obviously changes. There's stuff that's the same, and we want to talk about that. Overall thoughts on the game, though? You liked it?
Oh yes, I liked it very much. My favorite parts was like the cutscenes and the overall kind of story. The gameplay is okay, but I mean that's not why we're here. This is an RPG. We're here for the story.
Which
Some of them have good gameplay, and that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But like the story was why I was here, and it was awesome,
Sure.
especially at the end.
Sure. Did you play Final Fantasy 15? Or sorry, not 15. Yeah. 15,
Yes,
yeah.
I beat 15.
Because I'd say the combat in this is better than 15. It's similar, but it's improved.
It's similar. It's improved. There were. I wish that I either got to go out kind of by myself and kick butt,
Yeah.
or that my anyway, the combat wasn't my favorite part, but the story, especially like I've heard people talking about, like, you know, they see Midgar, and like I didn't know. By the way, for any of you who are joining us now, this is going to contain full spoilers for
Yes.
the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII the original. While we compare the two, because there's really, it's not really a complete conversation if we don't talk about all of both games.
Exactly.
So coming into Midgar and seeing all these things that had only been imagined, that was really cool. But like I didn't, like, I knew we were bombing, like I know we're the good guys, and it was interesting to watch the character development. I really liked how the world building was excellent, because they showed in these cutscenes, they would show like the different people and their interaction with their world and their interaction with Mako, and like the little like the small bits of plant life and the slums versus the higher ups, and it was excellent communication in the video, and I felt like I understood Midgar as a city by the time I started.
Sure, and I think that's one of the benefits of the opening, the benefit of the technology, because they were so limited with, you know, even with CDs, and the original being on 3 CDs, it wasn't enough to fully realize everything that they wanted. They wanted in the story, anything they wanted to show. So the remake did allow for that, and I liked seeing all the cars, like seeing all the people, and this game really makes you get emotionally invested in everything that's going on, in the characters, in the city, and I think it does that very well in order to get you, like I said, more and more invested in what's happening before you realize, oh no, this before essentially the plate drops. Which I loved your response, because you said you didn't think that was going to happen. You didn't think the plate was going to drop.
I mean, we're the good guys, and like, and I mean, I guess this is kind of a good place to start comparing the original and the remake, because I know that there's more of like, you get to see more of like what's happening at Shinra and like with the higher ups and stuff, and the other one, I think it was, you had said that it was more like kind of implied, but so that was kind of a question of like how evil was the corporation how much did they like show their hand, etc.
Yeah, and I think that part of the struggle that they had from making this game was how do you get story beats in that are supposed to be part of a game that is, 80, 100 hours, and you're taking the first subsection of the game. How do you get story beats in that happen after that, or somewhere that doesn't really quite line up? So, for example, Shinra, you realize that they're evil because Barrett's talking about Mako and everything, but you don't realize that they're in on this and they're trying to make Avalanche scapegoats until you're in Shinra HQ, if I'm not mistaken. So in this, you find out in the first chapter. You can see
we the players.
Yeah, we the players find out that Heidegger and everybody are planning, or sorry, President and Heidegger are teaming up to make Avalanche look terrible. They're the scapegoats, tie them into Wutai, and really again flesh out something that is barely in the original. Wutai is in the original because I think that was another question that you had.
Yeah, because I know that there's a character named Yuffie or Yuffie.
Yuffie.
And she, I'm guessing she's going to show up later, but she's from Wutai.
Yes.
Yes. And so, as a little bit further explanation on my understanding of the game, I was playing with my lady, and she beat the original, but doesn't really like when it came out, but doesn't remember the whole thing. And so she was like, "Yeah, Yuffie was Wutai, but what is all this?" And so I'm interested in knowing like what the propaganda was and that kind of thing. Like the how did they communicate that PR was turning against Avalanche and associating them with Wutai? Yeah.
And in the original, Wutai was discussed as an enemy of Shinra, but I don't think that we ever really dug into them as a culture or as a city, what have you. During the original, it was mentioned, and then Yuffie's from there. But the connection, which again makes the world even bigger, as opposed to just Shinra controls everything. Now it's like, okay, there's warring factions, and essentially it's a wag the dog kind of situation to make it seem like Avalanche is working with Wutai, and Wutai is trying to demolish and hurt the people. So therefore, they can rally the people against Wutai, and then have essentially another war. Is what I view is what we're leading towards.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because when they're getting ready to drop the plate, and Avalanche has heard that this is the plan, and they're trying to evacuate people. If they know Shinra is trying to pin this on them,
yeah,
I don't think that. I think that with that lack of understanding, it makes sense for them to be at the platform, which I'm guessing that they were in the original. To be defending the controls to drop the platform.
Yes, they're in the original. Okay. Yes, they're in the original, and you do have a fight during that time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like knowing what they knew, I think they all should have been working on evacuating. So I think that's one that it's like when you try to stretch a smaller world into a larger world, there are story complications. Mm-hmm. This was one that was forgivable, and I applaud the team at Square Enix because taking 6 to 8 hours of a game and expanding it into a full experience is really hard. As a storyteller, you know this, Patrick.
Yeah, but what did you mean by they should have prepared for the plate dropping?
Well, I think that that because they knew already that Shinra was trying to pin the plate dropping on them and associate it with Wutai, then I think that they should have focused on evacuation instead of trying to defend the thing.
Sure.
Because even Barrett could have been able to figure out that plays into their story.
No, I agree. I think that's why they split up, isn't it? So Wedge and Aerith go to try to get people to leave, but then there's another thing in there. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I just remembered. Because we had been, Tifa, Cloud, Aerith had been over at Don Corneo's.
Yes.
We didn't get back with the message.
Correct.
So we don't know what information they had.
Correct.
Okay, then I take back my comment.
And even if we had, we wouldn't have been able to warn them if it wasn't right for Destiny and the timeline, which is one thing that you don't find out until towards the end. You start seeing the first time that you see them, I believe, is with Aerith. The first time you meet her is when you first see the Whispers, and the Whispers in this case are making sure that Cloud meets Aerith because he was detoured. He was detoured by Sephiroth, and this is stuff that is not in the game, but there's speculation that Sephiroth is purposely detouring Cloud and trying to mess with Destiny, and he's either fighting with, he's either moving against Destiny where the Whispers will intervene, or if he's not doing that, he's purposely using them as a distraction, because if he moves a chess piece out of order, the Whispers are going to come in and put it back where the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So as they are kind of a distraction technique, and he can divert them so that the Whispers are focusing on something else.
He can't. So he can't control them. He could move something. He could change something that would refocus their attention. So he can't control them, but he could refocus their attention. Yeah.
He can't control them, but he does understand them.
Yes, he understands them, and we don't.
Able to manipulate them.
Yes, exactly.
And so, when did the Whispers? So I know that Sephiroth doesn't show up until later. When did the Whispers show up in the original game?
They don't.
Okay, so excellent. Then that makes me very happy because of a thing I'll talk about later about where when we get to the part where we talk about where the remake story goes next.
Yes,
but we're still.
The Whispers are completely new. The whole idea of fate and destiny, while there are some themes of that in the original, Whispers are new. And in this case, the Whispers were literally there. There's really subtle things here. The Whispers are to make sure that Cloud wakes up, because they were going to leave. He was not going to be on the mission. In the original, he's on the mission, the second mission. So he's essentially not going to be on the mission, and Sephiroth has kind of screwed timelines up and screwed up what's supposed to happen. So the Whispers literally are doing this to get Cloud back in with Tifa and with Barrett, so then he can go on the mission. That is the whole reason for this.
That's pretty brilliant. Because at first I saw it as like, what is this, like a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing? Yep. And kind of, yes, but it works well within the world because it allows them to do a little bit of variance in it, and then they're like, okay, now we're coming back to the story, and this is a way to announce to people who played the original, okay, now we're coming back to the next story beat, and it keeps the story moving, and it was a useful device. Yeah, and of course, and like you said, you didn't know this until the end, but as someone who's played Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Why are these things here? As well as the first appearance of Sephiroth, when and I have it queued up here. So Sephiroth is mentioned a few times in Midgar, in the Midgar section. He's mentioned a few times. I don't believe you see him at all in the original during this time frame. And I don't believe you see him at all. He's mentioned, but Cloud doesn't have flashbacks until after Midgar. He has a few moments where it's almost like he's getting like a headache or something, and he's almost having like deja vu. And that deals with his personality disorder, which we'll go into in this as well. And so the video that we're showing right now, the Sephiroth's first appearance. Yeah, I was really excited because like even though I didn't play Final Fantasy VII, like I've existed. Sure. And so I've seen the iconic images of Sephiroth like strolling out of the fire or into the fire or whatever he did. There was fire, there was Sephiroth, there was a big blade, and I was like, yay! Even though I didn't have experience with the original, sure. I was still like, yes, that thing, I know that thing, and that was fun. Yeah, I think it was really cool. That's the struggle of how do you take a game, and my assumption is this is going to be split into 3 parts. I think that this is part 1. We're going to get part 2 and part 3. How do you take what is the first 8 or 10 hours of a 80-hour game, and how do you tell a concise story in that
where your villain didn't even show up, and that was one of the structures. Obviously, Shinra is one of the villains, so they do get some play, but that was a struggle for them to tell from a storytelling perspective. I thought they did a pretty good job with it, and once you understand what the Whispers are doing, I think it adds another layer of complexity and intrigue. The
and
more
it
that you
gives
think,
them more freedom.
it does, and the more that you think about every time, if the Whispers show up, and I'm going to play the game again specifically to track every one of these, every time the Whispers show up, they're intervening to right destiny, but also they're only intervening because Sephiroth has screwed up what the timeline should be. Like, we're on this track, something's nudging it. There's an outside force, that's Sephiroth, who knows what's supposed to happen and what he wants to have happen. And there's a towards the end, I don't know if I have it queued up here, but towards the end, again, we're going to more things here, but Sephiroth has a kind of a discussion with Cloud where he's like, join me, and we're going to actually, I don't think it's right, I think it's before this, and Cloud has that moment of hesitation of saying, like, should I do this, and deciding not to, but then Sephiroth. But I also liked the idea of Sephiroth knows, one, that he has limitations. I don't think that he is corporeal at this point. I think that what we're fighting is more of an essence, more of his energy, which is why I think he needs Cloud. That's just one of my theories. There's a lot of theories out there, because he wants Cloud on his side, and I think he's going to continue to manipulate Cloud. And the other bit is here, which is, it's pretty well established, which you mentioned. Should I watch Advent Children before we review? You don't really need to, but I believe this is Sephiroth from Advent Children time traveling back to interfere. And Advent, because of his wing, he literally has a wing in this, and he doesn't get that until Advent Children. This is future Sephiroth interfering with the timeline, which means that you have this Sephiroth and OG Sephiroth still running around.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we might have an entire discussion, like, after now that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'll probably end up going deeper on this.
Yeah.
And we can have that discussion, and like theory craft and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I want to talk.
Yes.
I want to talk about Jesse and Wedge and Biggs and Tifa and Barrett and Aerith and all these people that I met.
Yes,
they were fun people. Okay,
Jesse has the most. So of the side characters, right? You have Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, and Jesse has the most lines in the original. And by the most lines, I mean that's because she gives you a tutorial of how Midgar is set up and how the security scan works, and that's about it. In this game, you got to know these characters. You got to get very close to Jesse. By the way, all the girls are really thirsty in this game. Like,
so I'll I would like to clarify that. So I flirt a lot. You've hung out with me in real life. I flirt a lot.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going for anything.
Sure.
But it's fun and it keeps other people off balance.
And I feel
like that's what Jesse was doing.
That's exactly
not necessarily actually thirsty.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, I make you uncomfortable, don't I?
Well, I think,
and she got a kick out of it.
I think there was a little bit, but did you get the Biker Boy perk? The Biker Boy trophy?
I did.
Okay, because so if you've seen that, then there is a little bit more to it. If you got that, which is if you get, I believe it's over 80%. For your health, then which I should have gotten a clean video capture of this, but Jesse will give you a kiss and he holds on to you a little tightly, so it's a little more. So if you did not get that trophy, she basically says you failed the test. There's the kiss, and then so I do agree. I think that's part of it, and Wedge even describes Jesse when he's talking about her and saying that that don't buy into everything that she's saying, which part of me felt like I think Wedge bought into it. Wedge thought that she liked him and she was just flirting. Like I feel like there was some history there, or someone
Yeah.
that he knew, had a
Could be.
yeah. So he definitely knows Jesse, and he's like, hey, she's not that serious. Tifa obviously has a very long relationship with Cloud, and
Mhm.
very interesting relationship. But no, I loved, you get to really know Wedge. You get to meet his cats. He's a big
I
softie.
did like Wedge's cats.
Yeah, absolutely love them.
I think his plot armor was a little too thick, but that's personal preference.
And that's the other thing is in the original, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge all die when the plate falls. All three of
Mhm.
them. All three of them. You get a very quick, like I think they say like one sentence to you if you go talk to them. It's just one sentence and that's it. So the plate falling, kills not only people but people that
Yeah.
and Cloud gets closer to them in this than he did in the original because he had this extra time, and I think that gets us more emotionally invested. It gets him more emotionally invested. I loved, and you mentioned this as well, Barrett and Marlene. So that is it's very taken from the original. This is very source material, and him being a big softie. There are a lot of scenes, the two of them, but Barrett, who has this extremely thick and gruff persona, is at his core he really isn't. He's doing everything he can in his world to essentially for his daughter, to give her a better life, which I thought was amazing,
and a better world.
Yeah.
Pass on a better world to the next generation, and he's reached a point where he's like, nobody else is gonna do it.
Yeah.
I gotta go save the planet, honey, because nobody else is gonna do it, and he's right.
Yeah.
So those moments of him as a dad were really big. I will say though, when he told her, I promise I'll come back.
Yeah, I was trying to find that.
As a dad, I don't. It was a parenting decision.
Yes.
That I disagreed with.
Yes.
And honestly, I think it's kind of cool that I can see them as such a full fleshed out character that I can be like, I see what you're trying to do, man.
Yeah.
I can't tell you you're wrong, but that's not how I would have done it. And that kind of calls back to like in The Last of Us, the beginning of the end of the first Last of Us.
Sure.
They were like, we're going to tell this story. This is not your character. Barrett is not our character. We are not Cloud.
Yes.
This is a story that's happening, and these characters are going to live it how they live it and be true to themselves.
Yeah.
And I liked that about it.
Yeah. And I would say that's one thing that you get to know these characters, and you don't get to know Cloud as you get to know him a little bit. I think part of that is the classic classic protagonist, where you don't want to show too much of their character because you want to kind of invest in that character parts of yourself.
And get to relate to the character. Yes. And if you have a bit more of a blank slate.
Yep.
And that does segue nicely into one of my issues with the game. At the very beginning, Cloud is very serious, mercenary. I gotta get paid, man.
Yep.
And then he meets Aerith.
Yeah.
And then everything changes, and he's basically like he's just doing fetch quests and whatever. And he kind of lost for me, he kind of loses his character from when he starts following Aerith.
Sure.
Up until he like sees Sephiroth. And he had less character than I would have preferred.
Sure.
And I'm curious how much of that is kind of the, like you said, the classic silent protagonist in the original set.
Sure. So in the original, all of the you don't have all of the side quests that you do with Aerith. So it's more of essentially in the original, you fall into the church, you save her as kind of like, okay, I should probably do this because he's a good guy. You escort her home. She asks you to stay. You sneak out. She finds you. Then you're at Wall Market. Like she's telling you, hey, I've got a shortcut to get through. You have to save Tifa. And then saving Tifa, you're thrown into the sewers. So he didn't have a choice but to move forward in the original. In this one, he's slowing down, and I wish that they had gone into it more. I view it, now that I've completed the game and knowing what I know of Cloud, I think that's real Cloud coming through, as opposed to his fake persona that he has given himself. And I don't remember if you know what I'm talking about here.
Not really.
Okay.
I know that basically in a lot of ways for him, his life as a soldier, he's like, I have all these abilities and maybe is not 100% sure what happened. And I know that there's a reason for that or something, but that's my knowledge.
And I need to understand the ending.
Which I did not.
I'm going to explain it because this does spoil Final Fantasy Original, but it does not spoil. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward. So we'll talk about that.
So let's discuss that at the ending. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, I'm going to spoil this. Then we're going to talk about, because I got to spoil two things for you to understand the context.
Okay, please.
That way we can talk about the ending and more of and understand the time frame and or what we're doing at. So when you meet Aerith and you're going through, she discusses, and you may or may not have picked up on this. She asks him if he was in Soldier and what his rank was. Right.
Right.
Cloud never became a soldier. So Soldier in title means that you are the cream of the crop. It's like special ops, whatever, right? They're the Soldier does not mean just infantry. It is the cream of the crop. We start messing with Mako and all kinds of other stuff.
Mako.
Yeah, well, it was Mako now. They start, so Cloud.
They started infusing.
Cloud was started to go through the program, but failed. He flunked out. He never became Soldier.
In this game, it seemed like whenever he said his rank, everybody who knew what it was like, "Oh, then you're like the best" or something.
Because
I did not even realize that he was that he.
This moment here, Aerith mentions, "Oh, you were the same rank." I'm going to rewind it just a little bit there. She said, "Oh, you were the same rank as my as the first person that I loved." And she mentions a name. It is silenced out in his brain. You can't hear it. Your player can't hear it.
Right. I did notice that at the time, but then I forgot about it.
Yes. So Cloud was, like I said, run-of-the-mill infantry. He was relegated to do that. The person who he was close to, who he has embodied his life after and pretends to is creating a persona around himself, is Zack. Zack is the person who went when you have the flashbacks of Sephiroth and Tifa, like from years ago when she has like the cowboy hat on and stuff.
Yeah.
So you find out about that later on in the original game, where Cloud says, "Oh, well, you didn't know I was, this is what happened, and I was there with you and Sephiroth," and he it wasn't him, it was Zack. This is Zack's last stand. He was supposed to die. Zack dies. Cloud takes his armor, takes his sword, and goes to Midgar, and basically says, "Oh, I was first class. Look at me," and pretends to be what Zack was.
Whoa!
So that's
crazy.
Yeah. So when they see at the end, I thought I had the ending queued up here. When they see at the end. When you see Zack at the very end, alive, which I'll grab here as I'm talking, you see him at the very end. You see him alive. That is the timeline that has been screwed up. So this was not you seeing him actually still alive. That was you seeing in another time frame, another timeline. He was alive. And he brought Cloud into. I thought I had that queued up. He brought Cloud back, to Midgar. So Cloud was injured, but Cloud was not dead. So what I believe that means is that almost got it. What I believe that means is that we will see Zack show up in the next game.
Okay.
Zack was
And
supposed to die. Yeah.
Yeah, this was another moment that I was like, what actually is happening right now?
I think that Aerith was feeling that this had changed. Specifically, Zack had changed because she has, by this time, she has felt that Zack has died, and at this moment, I believe, was her feeling, wait, he's alive. Now the question is he alive in their current universe? Because you saw Biggs at the end. Biggs is alive. Biggs should not be alive. That's changed. And there you see this, and I believe that's two timelines crossing. So I believe that that would have been, say, a year or maybe a couple months. I don't know how long it's been since he would have entered into Midgar. So that means we have Zack. Zack brought an injured Cloud back to Midgar instead of Cloud assuming the identity or the persona of a soldier first class. So when you have so that's very complicated, but it's similar to another game that you played recently, Metal Gear Solid 5, where you have someone who in my opinion, I think Cloud is dealing with his failures, and he didn't want to go back to Midgar and say, "Oh, I flunked out." Right. Because Zack died, he could say, "Oh, well, I was soldier first class," and he's never. That's why Hojo fact checks him, and he's like, "No, you weren't." And the Whispers come in and knock him out for doing that, if you remember. Yeah. That was pretty fun. That's why, because the other characters are not supposed to know that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so having so I guess my question is, what does Cloud think is real? Like, has he when he took on the persona or whatever, does he believe the things that he's saying?
I think that part of it is he does believe. Part of it, some of it is what he believes. Some of it is him lying and trying to stitch together his reality versus his lie. But I think some of it is also I think some of it is he actually starts to believe the lie, which I'm going to play the original again to get more of a feel. The other one, which I realized I should have done this in reverse order. The other thing, because that's the bigger bomb. The other one is this little clip that shows up.
Yeah.
And
I was excited about that. I don't know why he's mad, or it's. I know that is Kate of Kate Sith.
Yes.
But that's all I know.
Yes. So Kate Sith shows up later on in the original Final Fantasy.
Or something, right?
What's that?
He's in a casino or something, right?
He's in the casino. He's in the Golden Saucer. And he shows up, and when you first play the game, he shows up, and you're like, oh, it's this cat on a Moogle, and you're like, this is weird. It's one of the weirdest things in the game, which I thought it's interesting to see him here. He should not be here for multiple reasons, because one, we see him in the Golden Saucer, so it's like that's not the right spot for him.
Well, I mean, but see, we saw him, the characters didn't, so that story can still be a thing.
Yes, except for who he is. So, Kate Sith.
Sure. Okay.
Kate Sith, you find out towards the end of Final Fantasy VII, Kate Sith is not a cat riding a Moogle. It is an animatronic being telepathically controlled by Reeve of Shinra.
Holy shit.
Yes, so the coolest guy in Shinra, right? The coolest guy in Shinra, city developing.
Okay, that's a low bar, but the only one who's like, hey, before we blow up the world, what if we didn't?
Yes,
just throwing things out there.
That guy, right? That guy. So Reeve of Shinra is telepathically controlling Kate Sith, originally planning to spy on Avalanche. He infiltrates Avalanche because he thinks that Avalanche is the enemy. And when he continues to work with them and he realizes these people what they're doing, he comes clean and he does tell them, like, because it's Reeve, because it's not someone else at Shinra doing this. It's because someone who cares about the planet and cares about the people and realizes, crap, Avalanche is on the right side. So
Hmm.
he is literally spying on them. So the question is, why is he here in his office? And then just like, I don't know, an hour before he was controlling an animatronic cat? I don't know.
I mean, you said telepathically
Yeah,
controlled, and like, I don't know. We've all seen advances in animatronics. They have killed thousands of people. So, I mean, who's to say what animatronics can do these days?
sure. But Kate Sith, when you first see him, you're like, oh, it's this weird character, and there's a lot of people who just absolutely
Yeah.
hate him.
It's I had seen like pictures and,
Yeah.
and drawings and stuff, so I just kind of assumed
Yeah.
that was this game's, oh, what's the tongue thing in 9? I don't know. Anyway, those of you who've played 9 know what I'm talking about. There's a character with a tongue that like hangs down to like its midsection,
Uh-huh.
and it like just wants to eat everything, and that's its entire character.
Yeah.
And it looks nothing like anything else you see anywhere else. And I was like, oh, okay, this is Kate Sith is Final Fantasy VII's that thing.
That thing, right? Yeah. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up before we talk about what we think this is leading into, and before that, you mentioned
Okay,
Hojo.
then I have one after that.
Okay, you mentioned Hojo, and you're like,
Yes.
like Hojo is freaking awesome. And
Yeah.
the fact that he is like the quintessential mad scientist, he does not care about anything else. He wants knowledge. He wants it. So everything that he's doing for Shinra is really for his own investigation, his own research. And something that they changed in this, and I think for some obvious reasons, is in the original, he is trying to get Aerith to mate with Red 13.
With Red 13. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that being taken out.
Yes, again. So it's like I completely understand why that was taken out, but you have this character that should, it's another character that is barely they barely scratched the surface of Red 13 in this game, to the point where I've seen people on forums go, "Is that like an experiment? Did he create that thing?" So thought I'd say Red 13 is, I was like, it doesn't look like an experiment to me, right?
Also, they need to stop calling it it doesn't look like a dog.
Yeah,
It doesn't move like a dog. Come on, y'all.
it's definitely more of a cat, but even then,
Yeah,
it's this.
Well, it's rat cat thing.
Sure. So it is a species that we see in, I want to say, about halfway through the original game, or maybe a third of the way through. You see his home, and you go back there because he basically says like, "Hey, I'll join you until we get to Cosmo Canyon, and then I'm done." And I think that's one reason why you can't play him in this game, is because he always was. He was only in this to get back home, and then he's basically like, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
So here's one thing, because I criticized some aspects of the gameplay, but I really enjoyed them giving Red 13 autonomy, like complete autonomy. Red 13 just did what Red 13 wanted to do, and not giving me a chance to manipulate. Like, he fought alongside and just kicked butt and did things. I actually thought that was pretty cool, because
and I think that I think some people were annoyed by it, but it was all personal reasons, like because he's such a cool character. You're like, I want to play him. But they gave him that autonomy. I did think that the mechanic of him, like, hey, go over there and hit that switch, it was like you created that mechanic for like one reason, so that was kind of odd. But definitely.
I think that when you walked up to it, Red just should have gone. Like,
yes,
just go. We all know why we're here.
We know exactly why we're here. Yeah.
So I think we're about ready to discuss the ending. I did want to go back and say that Andrea, I don't know how it was pronounced in English, from the getting Cloud all fancied up and everything, was just a beautiful moment. I loved that entire thing, and I really enjoyed watching that. I needed to get that.
I absolutely love that. I should have had that queued up, because that is one thing that was in the original, and Cloud, and in this one as well. he's only doing it because he wants to save Tifa. He's like very much like against it, but he's doing it just because he can infiltrate. And that's what I loved when his interaction with Aerith, like when she like mentions him and he's like, yeah, I know, nailed it. Like, all right, let's keep going. Like that's his response. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. I loved that interaction. I also loved how Cloud goes into it and he gets into it just enough, but at the same time, it wasn't. They didn't. I think they did a good job riding the line of this is acceptable, that if you, whatever lifestyle you have, it was like, it wasn't making fun of a lifestyle. It was just like, embrace yourself. And that's what I liked, like what he tells him afterwards about like,
so actually what you were saying about the lifestyle and everything, I also wanted to call out, I don't remember their name, but in the squats, the best squatting person,
yes,
very androgynous, like just this is a thing, this is how I'm presenting, and I really appreciated that representation in the game. So I was like, right on.
In the original, the mini games that you do, or the mini game for squatting, is to get a wig, because the bodybuilders cross-dress. And that's the weird thing where it's like, this is kind of hard to, how do you do this in modern time, right? How do you take care to be like, this isn't a joke, when in Final Fantasy, the original one, it kind of is, but it's more, it's not making fun of cross-dressing. It's like, wow, that's someone I didn't expect. It's more,
it's the one of the more basic kind of jokes. Set an expectation and then knock it down.
Exactly, which is what I liked about the original. Doesn't make fun of it. It is a classic setup knockdown joke. And in this, I like that we still had the squats. I like that you still had a little bit of that androgyny and sexuality thing in that part. The weirdest part was the hand massage part, which I'm like, I don't like really.
That was okay. A little bit of that androgyny also with, I don't know which one was which one, the Reno or Root, whichever one didn't have the sunglasses. That like it was a very like just the way that they moved, the way that it felt. I liked how much personality got put into them via fighting styles. It's a very anime thing that I think that I don't really think they could have done before, or it would be a lot more difficult. I like the way they portrayed all of the way the characters move and give them personality that way. And
I liked that you get that, and you get a lot more time with the Turks in this than you do in the original, which again, you kind of dive into. You see how many times they've tried to get Aerith. You see like in the other one, it's like that's done as an exposition dump in Shinra HQ, where they're like, oh yeah, we've been trying to get her, and like now you get a flashback to her as a kid. You get I can't remember if it was a flashback in the original, but all of it seemed like there was more connection to these people, and even the Turks, who are the bad guys, had their own personalities and really shown.
I think Rude was the one that I'm thinking of. He had a line whenever they blew up when they knocked down the plate or whatever. He was like, I guess there's no going back now. He like recognizing the importance of, okay, this is my path has led up to this. This is who I am now. I guess this is what happens. And that was interesting. But the hesitation there was interesting.
So in regards to the ending, I guess, do you want to talk about the ending, where you think it's moving from here? Is that how you wanted to?
Well, first off, okay. Okay, so I knew what reality was. And then we hit an infinite highway. And then a bunch of stuff happened, and then we stepped into a portal. And then we're kind of back. What did walking into the portal do?
I believe, and again, they're not clear on this, but I believe going into the portal, and Aerith kind of talks about this, where she's like, if we go in here, there's no going back. I think it's because Aerith, throughout this entire game, has known I think she has known how timeline is supposed to go, and she knows about people before she should know about them. She mentions Marlene when no one has mentioned her name before. So I think what she was saying there was like, not only we're not going back, she's like, I don't know what's going to happen after this. Like my knowledge of time and what should happen, going through the portal, like I guess she stabilizes it and they go through. I believe that literally destroys the connection of destiny and fate to the world. So now there is complete free will. We don't know what the ending is going to be, which is even more interesting. The fact that Red 13, when they have a flash forward, he has a vision of the future, and Red 13 says, "Oh, that's what happens if we fail."
Yeah.
That's the good end. That's the ending of the original Final Fantasy VII.
That's the canon ending.
So I'm like, wait a minute. So the canon ending is the bad ending. So now we hopefully will get the good ending. Yeah. So now hopefully we get the good ending, which we don't know what that's going to be. I believe that what happened is
hopefully Sephiroth wins.
We'll see. So the question is, are we going to fight? Is it going to be two Sephiroths? Are we going to see Zack and Cloud fight Sephiroth? We don't know. We've broken, I think, breaking Destiny, and what they did has bled, the multiverse, if you will. I think what has happened is now it's collapsed on itself, which is why we have Biggs alive. You see him like in the bed, alive, and he shouldn't be alive. You see Zack has survived that moment, so maybe I think he's probably alive. And the theory also is that Jessie is alive.
I hope so. I loved Jessie.
And that Jessie is the actress at the Golden Saucer in the play that she never got to be in.
Interesting.
Yeah, so when we get to Golden Saucer, we'll see Jessie again. That's the theory.
Okay, so coming back to the ending.
Yes.
So we went into the portal and we went into kind of another dimension, another realm, and I was leaping all over, or Cloud was leaping all over highways and stuff.
Yeah.
And then beautiful star fade to black.
Yeah.
So I immensely enjoyed the beauty of the. It kind of reminded me of the end of Doctor Strange when he's confronting
Dormammu.
Dormammu, thank you. And also a very similar situation in the animated movie where the fight for various things just goes to just this whole other place where they can go like full anime on it. And I love the heck out of it.
Yeah,
that was at the last like 3 hours from the time we got to like the top after we climbed the stairs. From there forward was like my favorite part of the game for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
it's great. I loved it, and I didn't know what was going on. I do think it would have been very interesting if they had killed Barrett as another. No, we're gonna kill Barrett this time instead of Aerith, or are we? Dun dun dun.
Yeah,
and like just kind of leave that hanging, and I think that it'll be interesting because this I feel like Squeenix, and we're gonna have to kind of wrap up here, but like overall I feel that what Squeenix did here was they took a very beloved story and they said, okay, we took a lot of your favorite memories and we put them into this thing. We have these characters, we have this world. We've given you a lot of fan service and nods and things like that, but we don't want to make 3 games telling a story we've already told. Yes. And I think that what they did with especially with you explaining the whispers, nudging you back towards the path of Final Fantasy VII, the original. Yeah. The way I think that this gives the writers freedom to take the world that was created, keep expanding it, and not have to be blocked into these other things, because I know that some people played the original and they were like, man, my favorite part wasn't whatever. Yeah. And it, as you have said multiple times on the TheLanCave, Final Fantasy VII still exists. If you want that experience, that story, that still exists, and they're gonna do something different. Yeah. And I'm genuinely looking forward to that. I'm here for the rest of this.
Yeah, I agree. There's one other thing we'll do another video where we talk more about Final Fantasy VII and all this kind of stuff. But I've equated this when I've argued with people who didn't like it, because Final Fantasy VII exists. You can play it on your Switch, you can play it on your PlayStation 4, you can play it everywhere. This game is a, maybe they should have called it a reimagining, which could have been that. Maybe that'll be the one of the future titles, to one of the future games. But when we see comic book movies, we see a story similarly told, not the same. Thanos is not the same in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War than he was in the comics. But was it good?
So I would throw this out.
Yeah.
That I think that making video games today is truly a different medium than it was 20 years ago. And so translating from comics to movies is a transition. And honestly, from what they had, what they were working with, their limitations, to what they have now, it's kind of a different medium.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it's a different medium, and it's a different expectation of those who are playing that medium, and what they expect in graphics, what they expect in gameplay. And I think they did a really good job with this first section. So we'll do another video where we dive more into theories, into the whispers, and Genova, which I didn't get to talk about on here. So we'll dive more into that next time. On TheLanCave Final Fantasy VII talks, whatever we want to call this thing. Yeah. So hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what you think about Final Fantasy VII Remake and the changes from the original to this. Did you hate it? If you did, go play the other one on Switch or something. See you later.